So part two of our discussion today is on policy. And I want to say this, if COVID has taught us anything about the type of support that we can expect from the federal, state, or state government on AI in our schools, it's that we're going to have to tackle this alone with very little help from the outside. I could be wrong, but my guess that is each and every school district here today and elsewhere is going to be left to figure this out on their own. That doesn't mean that there won't be some attempts. So here's an example. So the White House has released what it calls its blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. And in it, they identify 5 principles that should guide the design, the use, the deployment of automated systems like AI. These 5 principles include, number 1, the safe and effective, right? This includes recommendations for independent evaluations and reporting that confirms the AI is safe and effective. The second one is protection against algorithm bias. This includes recommendations for designers and developers to take proactive measures to protect against algorithm discrimination. The third is data privacy, and this includes recommendations that AI developers first seek our permission regarding the collection, the use, and the access of our data in any way. The fourth there is notice and transparency. This includes recommendations for all AI systems to have documentation written in plain language that clearly describes the what and how the AI functions. The last principle, the human alternative, this includes recommendations that all AI systems give people the ability to opt out where appropriate and have them access a human who can quickly consider and remedy any problems that they encounter. Again, these are recommendations at this point, so we'll see where any of this goes. On this slide, not to be outdone, the European Union released its guidelines for ethical use for teaching and learning. And in an effort, not to be upstaged, their plan has 7 items versus 5 from the US version. We will provide links to both of these documents and a few others on the AI in Education Google Doc that everyone has access to already. On the next slide here, so when we talk about policy, there are really 2 different policy focuses. One is at the district level that focuses on the bigger picture items, items such as compliance, data privacy, teacher training, purchasing process for AI tools, curriculum alignment, things like that. Today's workshop does not focus on the district level policy. This is a topic that school boards and other policymakers will have to address. Our focus today is on the classroom level, right? We understood that many of the attendees today are classroom teachers or support classroom teachers. So that is our focus for today. And we'll be talking about or diving into topics such as, how can AI complement or augment our teaching? How can AI tools enhance student engagement and motivation, for example? How can AI increase accessibility for students who may need that or want that? And how can I, as the teacher, ensure that AI is being used appropriately and responsibly in my classroom? So heading back to the chat, taking these 6 elements that are on your screen now, which one do you feel is most important to you at this time? I'd like you to take a minute or so to read over the 6 items. Use the chat feature to indicate which one you believe is most important right now. See a lot of 1s and 2s. There's a 4, 5, some more 1s and 2s. Interesting. So staying in the chat, I'm also interested in knowing this. How many educators here today already have some type of academic integrity section in their syllabus? Please indicate with a thumbs up or down emoji in chat, just so I can get a gauge where our participants are today. I see most of us have at least some version of that. So I dug up an old syllabus of mine to see what was included. And like most of yours, I'm sure, my academic integrity section included wording around plagiarism, citing sources, academic dishonesties, things like that. We shouldn't throw those sections away by any means. However, I do believe that every classroom teacher, obviously being age appropriate, right, needs to have a section in this syllabus on AI moving forward, to address the concerns that we all have and our previous presenters had spoken about. The way I see things, at least today, again, is we really only have three options when we think about how to address AI on our assignments. The first would be like a red light. It's not permitted. An example policy would be collaboration with an AI software, whether it's ChatGPT or someone else or somewhere else, is not permitted on this activity. Right? I think that's pretty cut and dry as far as a classroom policy goes. So the next one would be like a yellow light. It tells the students that let's hit pause before continuing. An example policy could be students are required to obtain permission from me as a teacher before collaborating with their peers or an AI chatbot like ChatGPT on this assignment, right? So they're allowed to use it, but they have to check with me as their teacher first. First one says they're not allowed to use it. Now the green light, right? This option could be, okay, we're in here. Students are encouraged to use AI software, again, ChatGPT or another site, for their work on this particular assignment, but still must first see me as their teacher, and we can discuss how they plan to use it and how they plan to cite it in their work. So again, that's where I see things today. Will that change? Perhaps, right? I'm curious though, for our panelists here today who are classroom teachers, how did you handle classroom policies like these with your students in the spring?
I can share here, Sam. Some of the teachers that we worked with in the spring wanted these lessons done before a big assignment, for instance, like the required research paper for their course. So they wanted to have the conversations with the students ahead of time about the different ways to use it and which ways were not acceptable, hence the scenarios that we just shared out before. But there are other teachers that were saying that they wanted them to just address it in like a works cited, for instance, or a bibliography, that they wanted them to in there put something along the lines of how they used it, when they used it. One creative teacher actually wanted the students in a group project to have the bot be a group member. And then they wanted, as they were grading each other in their work, because they were doing a group project, they were assessing each other. And then the teacher, of course, assessing the whole group. They were, asked to assess the bot and how much the bot did versus how much they did. So a lot of creative ways that we saw in the spring.
Hi, I'm Karen Zecca. I teach at Garner Valley School District. In my class, we were actually talking about emerging technologies and how AI is one of those technologies. And as we talked about it with the students, they really had a good grasp on, okay, it's new technology. We've been studying what technology is. It's something that they want to use and they like to use, but they do understand that there has to be limits on it, that you can't trust everything that's on there. We did a whole kind of project similar to what Christine and Mike shared in our own classroom with the kids. And it was really interesting to see their differing opinions on it. It was not black and white. It wasn't everybody thought it was cheating. Everybody didn't think it was cheating. There was a lot of conversation that went into it. And we got into a deeper discussion, not about using AI, but what is cheating? What is having integrity? What does it mean to use resources and put them into our work? What does that do to our creativity? So we actually had some really cool conversations based on it. And I think the kids kept talking about it even after they left, because we had them for 57 minutes and our kids were deep thinkers about it. So it kept going and we had to have another class to keep talking about it. But I think, teaching the students, just like we teach them every other technology anyway, with the integrity of technology, here's your Chromebook, here's your iPad, here's your phone, here's how to be responsible with it. So I think a lot of our teachers too already do kind of say, okay, here you can use your cell phones for this. Here you can use your cell phones for that. You can't use your cell phones for this. I think AI is on those same lines. Like, here's where you can use it. Here's where you can't. And I think students are really, they want those restrictions. They want to know what the limits are and what the boundaries are. One, probably to test them and push them and see what else they can do with them. But that's, we're humans. That's what we do. My 6-year-old does it all the time. But I think also because they want those boundaries, like, okay, I do want to be safe. This does make me a little nervous. I'm not going to tell anybody this makes me nervous because I'm not going to stand out. But deep down, they do care, and they want to know what the restrictions are, and they want to help set those restrictions. So we had some really good conversations in our classroom about that with 7th graders.
Yeah, I can build off of what Karen was saying. So it was interesting also seeing there are some students who you could tell they've used ChatGPT and other AI resources frequently, and others who maybe weren't as well versed. And the students who have that background experience and knowledge, it was interesting to hear them talk to the other students. So for example, I had one student who talked about, they were trying to figure out what ChatGPT could do. So they were typing in different phrases and responses and saying this is crazy. It's giving me such detailed work. And other students were saying you need to be careful though. You can't just copy and paste it. So students are starting to figure out the parameters that are set for them. And I think they're starting to figure out what's acceptable. And that image that Christine shared earlier of Matt Miller's different statements, they're starting to determine what's cheating in their own minds. And like Karen said, they don't want to get in trouble for what they're doing. So it's all about walking that fine line, but also helping each other out because they come in with different background experiences.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Mike, you had mentioned earlier in a conversation about conversations you had at home. Did you share that with the group?
That is an absolute fact. So my darling son needed some help with one of his math problems. So I showed him ChatGPT, and I went on and I tried it, and it showed me how to simplify his problem, which in turn gave him the opportunity to practice the other 5 or 6 that he had to do. With that said, he also learned and knows about photo math. And one of the things that he did was he procrastinated his Delta math assignment. And he procrastinated long enough where he used his photo math just to quickly answer those questions to get done, which in turn burned him 3 days later during the quiz or the test that he had to take. So we used it 2 different ways. One, just to quickly get done. But again, he learned his lesson because the teacher proactively figured out, wow, he got a 100 on the Delta math, which was supposed to help prepare for the quiz, but he bombed the quiz. And with that, he kind of saw that the answers were going quick. And he quickly had said, yeah, I use photo math. I use photo math. So it was a nice learning experience for him. And he just finished 8th grade going into freshman year. So the hope is that lesson got learned and he's going to care about his learning.
Thanks, Mike. Not sure if anybody else is wanting to share. Just be respectful of everyone's time to move on to the next part. So before I turn it over to our next presenters, I'd like everyone just to think about these 2 questions. I don't need you to post anything. I just like you to think about the 2 questions that are on your screen for a second or two. Number 1, which option, red, yellow, green, would you choose right now for the most of your assignments, or is that going to vary, right? And number 2, how will you determine if and when to use those options? Those 2 questions to me are things that all educators need to begin to be thinking about for the upcoming school year.